Hello YouTube, it's Bo Brady. Welcome back. So I have been doing an awful lot of research, and I've got an awful lot more research that I need to do, but look at all these tabs I have open. Each tab has something important that I need to address. Okay, I see I'm live, that's great. I'm going to close that to save my bandwidth. Each tab has something that I need to talk about, so I need to have it accessible for my videos, but I can't really have much more tabs in this, so I just need to try to break this up into smaller chunks. Certainly not going to be bite-sized or small in any way. I'm going to be covering a hell of a lot of information here, and this is information that you can't learn anywhere. You couldn't pay, even if you went to the Ivy League colleges. You can't learn this anywhere. Matter of fact, this type of information seems to be being deliberately kept from us. And so let me try to figure out where to begin here. It's really complicated, and I haven't reached any absolutes yet. I'm a lot closer towards solidifying a framework for what has happened in our history. What explains our current situation and all the different races and languages and countries and customs and myths and religious beliefs, and what are we doing here? Where did all this programming originate? Why is there so many different languages? How come RH negative is the least understood and most purposely manipulated topics you can come by? Like, it doesn't take a whole lot of research to realize that that there are definitely people that have agendas that lie. I can't imagine somebody would go through the time of making a website or even a YouTube video based on a topic that they haven't researched. So I have to assume that they're just lying. Anyway, let's just try to get into this. So there is a creation story that's widely known about, and it seems to be the origin of the biblical Genesis, Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve story. But it predates that. As a matter of fact, it's some of the oldest texts that we have. It's the cuneiform Sumerian tablets. And the guy that's the most popular for translating it, Zecharia Sitchin, he might not have it right, but everybody that has tried to translate it comes out with pretty much the same story. You know, it's not off by enough for the gist of it to be unusable. You know, you don't just throw out the baby with the bathwater. You know what I mean? And so instead of it being Adam and Eve, it's the Adamu, and the Adamu was a race of servants, a servant class that they engineered using part of their DNA and part of a native species DNA to make it, you know, that's why the Bible says that God made the humans in His image, made in God's image. I'm going to use that term God, gods, for brevity, but just understand that that doesn't actually mean God. That's just what their egos wanted to be known as. And for all intents and purposes, if they created a race, put yourself in their shoes. If you created a species, through your technology, and why wouldn't you tell them you're God? Because you're making them to be a servant class, so you're going to need to be looked at as something special, at least, right? So you might as well go with God. After all, you did make them, okay? So apparently, based on the story, the oldest creation story that we have, written down, we should expect to find distinctly different species, like different people that aren't related. And that's exactly what we do find in our bloodlines. The Rh negative and Rh positive are not compatible with each other. So you could say, was it the Rh negative or Rh positive that was the servant class? That's debatable, I guess. But because Rh negative is not able to be cloned, and engineering a species would require you to clone it, it seems pretty likely that the Rh negative would be the progenitors of the other blood type. So that leads me to a related but different blood issue. There's the O, A, AB, and B. Wow, someone's really yelling out there. But only O can donate blood to everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. The O blood type will work for you. But if you are O and you take A, it'll kill you. So aside from the whole Rh negative, Rh positive issue, there's also the issue of blood type. And O, based on all my research, seems to stand for original, the original. Now, there's a lot of evidence to support this, and we're going to get into that later, but I'm just trying to set up a framework for which you can understand all. Look at all these tabs here. We're going to go through all these, so don't give up on me yet. I got plenty of facts coming your way. This is not me trying to tell you what I think because of any of my prejudices. I do the best that I can to eliminate those from me and try to only derive my learning from what I can prove. Because it's pointless. Why would you try to learn if you are deliberately, knowingly going to skew whatever you learn to not be correct anymore just to make you feel better? Like, fortunately, the things that I've learned throughout this process have actually wound up making me seem like, if anything, if I was going to lie, I would lie to tell the truth. It seems like the blood type I have is the most favorable, but that just happens to be that way. I can't change that, and it's really uncomfortable for me to be in that position, but the facts are the facts, and we are a species with amnesia, and that's the reason we're in such a despicable condition these days. We need to know where we came from and what's what, because we all have this information in our DNA anyway, and so there's a hierarchy type of feeling that people have, and it plays out in the real world to a certain extent anyway, and to know that there's a very deeply entrenched long time history of this and how it started is helpful. It's helpful to me. I think should be helpful to everybody. I mean, I can't imagine a circumstance where you'd be better off if you were lied to. I mean, I guess if you're asking me how your ass looks in those jeans, sometimes people don't want the truth. If you don't want the truth, you don't need to watch my channel, because that's what my channel is about. That's all I want it to be about. Anyway, so let's get started here. So the first thing I learned that's triggered this whole series of new round of investigation was about the Aino people. They're actually indigenous Japanese people that are Caucasian. If you look up The Last Samurai on Google Images, you'll find a picture of a white dude, something kind of like this. Now, and this and other things I'm going to point out later is what helped me make more progress in unifying my perceived view of history. I have an idea in my head, but I don't want to claim that that's the way it is until I can prove that's the way it is. Unless I can prove that's the way it is. And because China and Asian, the entire Asian culture altogether was throwing a huge wrench in my my outlook, I had pretty much scrapped my entire theory my thesis, I should say. But now that I have some fresh intel, that's no longer a problem, and it really fits my original thesis. So there's these Ainu people, right? Look at. Let's just do some reading. Alright, the Reichian and the Ainu share similar genetic traits despite living on opposite ends of the Japan archipelago. Okay, well, this is how it's going to go, alright? I don't really know how to proceed, but I have to have some sort of framework. So I'm just going to read these articles, and as I get reminded of things, I'm just going to tell you right then and there. Because I can't just remember all these things and go back, and I need you to learn stuff, learn what I've learned. And this is it's not an easy process, but stick with it. All right, so living on opposite ends of Japan. This fits my my original thesis. Okay, so basically, I'll have to explain that to you. So, if the Sumerian creation story is to be given any credibility at all, if that's at all how things happened, then that would mean that there was the Anunnaki. They were an extraterrestrial civilization that came to Earth and invaded it, and uh, 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 they're not necessarily the good guys. That's for damn sure. Um, they came and they made a servant class, okay, and that's where we get all the Bible stories about the Tower of Babel and how they they didn't want their creation to be equal to them, and so they split up their languages. So now, so the splitting up of languages, that's not just something some guy had an acid trip back in biblical days and started writing down some funky story. Like, obviously that did happen because look how many languages there are in the world. There's more languages than there are races. Okay, and 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 really, uh, there's really only 3 races. Some people say 5, but it's actually 3, and it happens to fit the blood types O, A, and B, and then so that's 3. But some people say 5, so then there's AB and RH negative. That would be 5. Um, it, it, there's okay, so these Sumerians or these Anunnakis, they as far as I can tell, they had a system for setting up an empire, and in whatever region they wanted to use their servant class to mine for them or grow food or whatever they needed, they situated themselves in positions where their servant class would be trapped between either water or um, or populations of the gods. And so there was oftentimes either a north and south king or an east and west king, depending on the geography. All right, this is my my working thesis, but I have a whole lot of support for this that I was not expecting to ever have. Um, uh, but it's just my intuition, basically. My intuition has never led me astray, but it's not. But just because I've been able to learn that I can trust it doesn't mean I can prove it necessarily. So whenever I can prove it, it's very helpful. So anyway, so the Ainu share similar genetic traits despite living on opposite ends of the Japan archipelago. So there was a north and south uh, cultures that were, and then like normal Japanese in the middle. Okay, and the north and south were Caucasian, and in the middle there were, uh, like a Mongoloid, or one of those other broad. There's Caucasoid, Negroid, and Mongoloid. Those are the three main races. So in Japan, there's an example of that. Also, in Africa, in North Africa, there was King Tut, and that whole area where the pyramids. Uh, King Tut's DNA got tested. It was Western European, Caucasian. And then it's also common knowledge that in South America there's a Caucasian population. So the North and South are white, while the middle is a different culture, just like in Japan here. And then, well, there's more examples, but you get the idea. We'll come across more examples later. Um, so that's basically what this whole article was talking about. How there's these Ainu and Ryukin, and they have similar genetic traits despite being on opposite ends. And the Ainu, fair and stocky, closely resemble Caucasians. The Ryukin also exhibit fair skin and sharp noses with unusual abundance of hair. Once an independent kingdom, the Ryukin shared friendly ties with the Chinese before Japanese colonization during the Meiji period. Anu, oh, that's another thing. Anu, doesn't that sound short for Anunnaki? I mean, I don't, and I don't think it's a stretch at all. Words, words for people's culture, who they are derived from something. And Anu, I'm trying to suggest that they were following this this system of worldwide uh, exploitation of the servant class. Yeah, it was the Anunnaki, the gods, and they just happen to be called the Anu. Anyway, just thought I'd point that out. Okay, let's go to the next issue. So here's one. Yeah, it doesn't look. They don't look like your standard Japanese person. Anyway. So, nearly 85% of all human beings are they're... Yeah. Okay, O is the purest blood known to mankind, known from where the negative factor originates. Okay, so I'm trying to also suggest that the O was the original, and obviously these creator god Anunnakis would have had to have been the original, because the type A and type B, and then later through mixing the type AB, um, would obviously be the created ones. And it just so happens that those blood types can be cloned, while the original O negative cannot be cloned. This isn't, I'm not trying to make the facts fit my thesis. The facts just do fit the thesis. It wouldn't. That's why it is my thesis. It's not my thesis because it's the way I'd like things to be. It's my thesis because it is the best, um, uh, the best formulation of all the evidence I've learned throughout my entire life. Um, um, but I'm trying to stop people from accusing me of some sort of, supremacy idea. Like that's the last thing I want to imply. Like it's, I wish I wish I didn't have O negative blood, so that I can talk about this without feeling bad. Um, but see right here how it says Rh negative factor is a mutation? No, it's not. How on earth could that be? When you look up all the traits that are common to that blood type, a mutation doesn't cause that. You don't get 50 extra IQ points because of a mutation. Okay, it makes way more sense that the people that created the servant class genetically engineered them to be not quite as smart, because they didn't want rivals on their hands. They didn't want their creation coming back to bite them in the ass. You know what I mean? So that it all fits is what I wouldn't be suggesting these things if it wasn't very, very likely and perhaps even provable. I just started this new round of research because my dead end has finally been taken away. It's seeming more and more plausible by the second. And that doesn't mean I have everything figured out. It just means that the story I'm telling you is a hell of a lot closer to the truth than what our universities are trying to tell you. Like, that's a bunch of bullshit. Anyway, so they got recognized as where is it? These Anu people got recognized as for being indigenous. Like, I guess I might have closed that one. Let's let this load. Load. What do we got here? Origins of the Anu. Okay. Sparked by revolution in archaeology, flotation facilities, the collection of plant remains, mainly seeds and charcoal, preserved by burning of oxygen-poor environments such as the depths of a fireplace. Under these circumstances, seeds don't oxidize to ashy dust. Also, I would say that things don't oxidize and would be likely to become petrified after a tsunami, after the Great Flood. A great flood, a tsunami that covers the entire earth, would definitely result in exactly what we see all over the world, which is ancient sites being buried under a layer of mud, because that's exactly what would happen after a flood. People, but today our archaeologists and our wannabe smart guys all want to tell you that, oh, that was just dust settling out of the air, and nobody was sweeping uh, for such a long time that now there's 20 feet of dirt bearing what was clearly very valued, and a site that wouldn't have been abandoned because it's nicer than anything else that's around it. You know what I mean? Like, for example, the image that's used for the default for this video, the Sphinx. Oh, I guess that's not the image that shows it buried, but you can easily search for and find images of the Sphinx being buried up to its neck. Now, as far, Egypt is talked about in the Bible, and as far as we know, since the Bible was written, there was no reason to ever abandon Egypt for so long that the Sphinx could suddenly be buried at 20 feet of sand. Like that. So clearly there was an event that occurred that we aren't being told about, um, and that's not just one example. That type of evidence is worldwide. Um, that topic is called mud flood. Look into it yourself. I don't really have time to get into that. All right. Okay, the Americas were the last great frontier to be settled by humans, and their people remain one of the great mysteries for researchers. This week, two major studies of the DNA of living and ancient people to settle the big question about these early settlers, who they were, when they came, and how many waves arrived. But instead of converging on a single consensus picture, the studies published online in Science and Nature throw up a new mystery. Both detect in modern Native Americans a trace of DNA related to that of native peoples from Australia, so the Australian Aboriginals, and Melanesia. Melanesia sounds like an island. Uh, the competing teams, neither of which knew what the other was up to until the last minute, are still trying to reconcile and make sense of each other's data. That's perfect when something like that happens. When that happens, when when people thought it was going to be one way, and the data comes back uh, not only not supporting what they thought it was, but introducing an entire new can of worms, that's when that's a good thing. When that happens, that's aha. That's a breakthrough right there. That's how, when things like that happen, it's the only way the old paradigm can be deconstructed to make way for a new and improved paradigm. Uh, uh, without waiting until the people that believe that are all dead, because that's the only other way paradigms change. And if you're completely happy with the story you were fed about out of Africa, Bering Strait, Clovis first, uh, linear progression from primitive cavemen to the pinnacle of achievement, us today. If that's, if that's important to you, then please don't watch this video or my channel for that matter, because that's not what it's not what the evidence suggests. That's only something that someone would believe that doesn't care to look into anything for themselves and is perfectly okay accepting whatever mainstream narrative they were force-fed when they were in public K through 12 indoctrination, um, uh, daycare. That's what it was. Don't, not exaggerating. Okay, they concluded that all Native Americans. Okay, so well, yeah, what I already read you was huge. So the American Native Americans, they share DNA with Australian Aboriginals and also some Islanders. Um, um, so that also supports the thesis that I'm not trying to make things fit my thesis. I'm looking for things to disprove my thesis. Um, um, but that said, it certainly doesn't hurt my thesis because I'm saying that there's only O, the original, A, the Adamu, B, I guess the Eve, or just another addition, and those are the races, and then AB together to make a fourth, and then RH negative is a whole other class. Um, so anytime that you see populations uh, that haven't had a whole lot of intermingling with other cultures, their blood tends to be here. Look at in Brazil. Are you still following me? Okay. In Brazil, O blood type. Oh, where'd it go? Damn it. Okay. Yeah. In Brazil, the O blood type, 100%. 0, 0, and 0 for all these other. Okay. In Peru, O blood type is 100%. And then 0, 0, 0 for the others. Of course, it'd have to be. And then in Maya, modern Maya, 98% O. Indigenous North Americans, so that Native Americans, also mostly O. So these are all the Peruvians, the Brazilians, the Mayans, and the Native Americans. They all represent cultures that haven't been historically known to be, sailing all over the world and mixing and interbreeding with a bunch of other cultures. They're, uh, they they have a history of being them, and so when that circumstance arises, it is likely for the original blood to be the prevailing one. Uh, um, but let's see, and Eskimos, apparently Eskimos are a little more mixed. Inuit, Navajo. Okay, I got to read some stuff to you so you can tell that it wasn't just me making that up. Findings suggest that European bone epidemics such as smallpox altered the, oh, they're saying that smallpox altered the landscape of people. Let's see, the survivors of these outbreaks less likely to carry variants. This made them less able to cope with new diseases. The change in genetic makeup is measured by scientists to have occurred around 175 years ago during a time when smallpox epidemic was ringing through the Americas. I'm going to have to read some more. Okay, prior to 1952, confirmation of DNA as the hereditary material by that guy and that guy used blood proteins to study human genetic variation. The ABO blood group system is widely credited to have been discovered by the Austrian, that guy who found 3 different blood types in 1900. Blood groups are inherited from both parents. The ABO blood type is controlled by a single gene, the ABO gene with 3 alleles. Research by that guy during World War I found that the frequency of blood groups A, B, and O differed greatly from region to region. See, isn't that, doesn't that make you go, because that isn't what we were led to believe when we were learning this kind of genetics stuff in school, was it? We were led to believe that it was just chance and mutation and just a roll of the dice. But if blood groups differed greatly from region to region, which implies from culture to culture, then that's kind of a big big light bulb aha moment where you're learning something that we were denied. This is kind of stuff that's like pretty basic. It's stuff that, if I was to make a curriculum for K through 12, that would be something that you would learn before middle school. About your blood and why that matters, and how it's not random and not meaningless, and that it's more important than we've been led to believe. For health, for lots of reasons. Okay. This suggests again that the initial Armenians evolved from the isolated population with a minimal number of individuals. So they had a frequency, see, Central and South America populations with a frequency of nearly 100% in O blood type. The O blood type, usually resulting from the absence of, is very common around the world with a rate of 63% in all human populations. The O is the primary blood type among the indigenous populations of the Americas. So I didn't just make that shit up. It's part of my thesis, of course, that O is original. But here, it's pretty much saying that same thing in a different way. Right here, type O is the primary blood type among the indigenous populations of the Americas. And based on this chart here, the Americas, including South America, with a frequency of nearly 100%. So that's telling you something. That's telling you that that bloodline has been intact without a whole lot of intermingling, just like I said before, but needed to prove and waste a whole lot of time just so that I don't have you take this as me making shit up. So all initial Amerindians evolved from an isolated population with a minimal number of individuals. So that fits my thesis, that there was a ruling class that created a servant class, and that's exactly why it was an isolated population, minimal number of individuals. That's how it started. That's what the best minds have come together to say it, but this is fragmented information. I'm trying to unify a whole lot of different things to tell a more broad story. So let's go. Let's go. Oh, and then this paragraph is trying to say the standard explanation for why O would wouldn't be uh, you know equal in prevalence among other populations is due to smallpox. But no, just okay, sure. If you think that that's more plausible, why not? That's what this paragraph was written for whoever you are. But this up here was supporting me. So anyway, so Native American implications. Okay, let's see. Ecology. Okay. Oh, and here's something that I learned while doing this research thing. The Caucasus, the area that Caucasians get their name from, actually is a part of the world, the Caucasus Mountains in Dagestan, Russia. All right, the Caucasus is an area of great ecological importance. I would say so. The region is included in the list of 34 world biodiversity hotspots. Biodiversity hotspots. It harbors some 6,400 species of higher plants, 1,600 of which are endemic to the region. Its wildlife includes Persian leopards, brown bears, wolves, bison, marls. I was thinking of a narwhal, which is that unicorn whale thing. Golden eagles and hooded crows among invertebrates. Some 1,000 spider species are recorded in the Caucasus. Most of anthropod biodiversity is concentrated on Great and Lesser Caucasus ranges. The region has a high level of endemicity and a number of relict animals and plants. The fact reflecting presence of refugial forest which survived the Ice Age in the Caucasus Mountains. What the hell are we doing here? I don't think there's any reason for me to be reading that. I'm sorry. Okay, well, this is interesting. So, the Caucasus has mainly economically important minerals and energy resources. Has many minerals and energy resources, such as alunite, aluminum potassium sulfate, gold. Second thing mentioned is the thing that would be the primary reason for excuse for wanting to create a servant class was to mine gold. And so the area that the Anunnakis, okay, so that's where I need to fill you in. Okay, so arch negative is tied, it's recessive. So it is linked to Caucasians in general. And not only that, it's also linked to left-handedness. That's why so many presidents have been left-handed, and why every president has also been related to the same royal family, which is the Blue Bloods, which is uh, just another way of saying Rh negatives. Um, 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 I'm pretty sure I can prove that later. There's a whole lot more tabs here. But yeah, and there's a whole lot more research I want to do. I just can't do anymore until I get this published and out there. And this particular video right here isn't supposed to be some be-all end-all statement on the topic. This is just going to be one part in several, I imagine, that that I'm going to use to help compile my concepts and facts in one location, so that in the future I can go back and reference it without having to look up this many different web pages. All I have to do is open my video and skip to whatever part I need to show you whatever I need to show you. You understand? So this is an epic video of extreme knowledge acquisition that is in the making. Okay? I'm doing all of my, you know how a book, at the end of a book, at least a good book, will have all kinds of references. I'm getting all the references out of the way for my upcoming announcement of grand proportions, mind-blowing, and you know, it's a big deal. Being able to solve or cure the species with amnesia, I can't think of a more worthy cause or something that I could be more proud of doing with my energies. You know what I mean? Alright, let's see what else we got. Let's see if we're still streaming. Okay, good. Lusitanian distribution. What the hell's that? I gotta like try to remember what all the. Okay, look at this. So here is a snail that it's found here and here. Now, this it was just something that popped up when I was looking at the you know, the north and south type of genetic characteristics, but this is most likely due to shipping, which is still related because these areas, I'm almost positive these areas would have forts, star forts, and there'd be shipping going on here. And also right here, this is the Basques. This is this part of the world that has the highest percentage of Rh negative, and not by like a little bit, like by a heck of a lot. And they also have a language that no other language is even closely related to. It's very unique. So you know, likely that was the original language of the Anunnaki, and then all these other languages in the world, which I don't even know how many, but there's a lot. There's a hell of a lot of languages. It doesn't make sense for it to be so many effing languages, right? It only makes sense if the Bible story about, you know, breaking up languages in order to make it less likely that the people will rise up against, you know, the slave drivers or the ruling class. It seems it seems likely, it seems, yeah, very plausible. Uh, uh, I don't see um, how anybody could not accept this thesis of mine, these theories. Just accept it. I'm getting close to just accepting it as a fact because, um, you know, it just fits. It fits way more than the so-called facts I was taught in conventional ways. Alright, so let me find some more points. I know I had way more points. Alright, the Silk Road. Oh yeah, well, here, let me just open up a new tab. Images. Uh, how about just the fact that China has a White House? This also is something that what the hell? No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Had to make it one word. There we go. So here's the, yeah, no, it doesn't really look like exactly like the White House or anything, but it does look exactly like the architecture that's everywhere else in the world. And so this is also something that makes Asia and Chinese peoples no longer an issue for my thesis. They fit. They not only fit within the blood groups, original and then types A and B, um, but they also have the same architecture. Alright, and this architecture happens to be here. Let me show you. Yeah, it happens to be everywhere that would be strategically appropriate for it if you were trying to keep a a, a servant class uh, isolated, or keep them surrounded by uh, either you or natural barriers. Um, let's see, May. So, all along the coast, you have big cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and then all of the coast, there's all these missions, San Luis Obispo, and just countless. So, it might as well just be castles all up and down the coast. Castles. Is stone, fortresses, star forts, just very, very heavily fortified and protected coastline. Uh, and then same thing with this coast. Um, Lots of star forts and structures that uh, are clearly from another age, another time, using technologies that we don't have access to today. We don't build shit with stone today because stone is ridiculously hard to work. you know, uh, we now we use concrete. Um, but concrete is not as doesn't last as long as stone, and it's not as impressive, that's for sure. It's not as hard as stone. Yeah, stone is far superior. And people have the idea of the Stone Age all wrong. The only reason we call it the Stone Age, it has nothing to do with, it's not that the people only built with stone. I mean, that's possible, but it's not likely. Uh, it's much more likely that their civilization was diverse, just as diverse as ours is, but the only thing that's stood the test of time for there to be anything left for us to study them by are stone artifacts, because that's all that's left. Any metal would have oxidated and rusted away. Any concrete would have got turned back into sand. You know, any wood would have rotted or burned, which actually leads me to a point that's even probably better to make than this. Because of course cities will be at the coastline. I'm just saying. Like here, how about this? The Native Americans were all here, but then there's white people up here, and guess what? Mexico is white people. That's another thing that I learned. This during this round of research. That Mexicans are white. What race is Mexican? Identify as being white. The majority of Mexican Americans are white, or Mexicans also, not just Mexican Americans. And then the remainder identify themselves as being some other race, 2 or more races combined, Native American, Black, and Asian. One of the originals. They're O, A, and B, and then A and B together. Those are the only unique actual races. Everything else is just a mix of some kind of mix of those. And but the areas that showed 100% one blood type, that shows that they were. That's what that's what was created. That, like, those were the indigenous people that have been there all along and haven't been intermixing with other races, because their blood is still all 100% one type. That would only happen if given my thesis. Yeah, like whenever you have a question here, it says the race option for like Mexican people is worded strangely differently than all the others. It's like, I'm sure you know what I mean. I wish I had an example to show you, but also I have a friend that who's Mexican, or his family, some of his family lived there, and he said that there's a portion of Mexico that they're like white Mexicans, and so uh, here there's also uh, oh no, it's not. Uh, India. Iran was known as White India. Uh, damn it. I'm not pulling up the. Alright, during this time, many Iranians, who are now called Persians since the migration to India, chose to preserve their religious identity by fleeing from Persia to India. The word, whatever, pronounced Parshan, i.e. Parsi, in the Persian language literally means Persian. What the hell? That's It's not what I meant to. uh, well, I already made a video about this. There it is. Known as White India. Here, let's go there. This is, it's weird, but when you think about it, and think about how every country on Earth, there's like a white population somewhere in that country. In Japan, and Mexico, I guess, and Iran, and everywhere. And so that situation, they like to blame it on um, British, you know, British and Dutch shipping, but bullshit. I don't buy it. Like, how many sailors that country was producing more sailors and more colonizing communities uh, and proliferating themselves all over the place to a much larger extent than would be expected by mere trading. Usually when you're trading, sure, you might want a couple guys, or maybe even an entire city of people there to help mind your trading ventures. But if that was the case, then then why aren't they all speaking English still? A lot of these people are. I'm not doing a good job making this point. It's a bad point, okay? Forget about that point. It just seems that, I'm just doing a rough estimate, some figures. That the numbers just aren't adding up, alright? There's a whole lot of. It's like more than the population of Britain would have to offer. So we're supposed to explain Australia, not only Australia but America, and these Japanese Caucasians and all of the white, and then South Africa, and Canada. All of that came from one little island of Britain. I don't think so. It seems much. That sounds like a bullshit story. Seems more likely that these populations of Caucasians actually were part of all these communities, but not, but as like a ruling class, and you know, yeah, the royal family, just like the caste system in India today, and how that every royal family is worried about the bloodline and and intermarrying. You know, there's a whole lot of incest because they're trying to keep the bloodline uh, pure or whatever. Uh, uh, for whatever reasons they have. But uh, uh, yeah, if they were all British uh, originals, you would think more of them would speak English. I'm pretty sure the South African white people don't speak English, but we're yeah. That's actually one of the points that I had researched, but I'm doing a piss poor job at finding these things. But here, look at this. Here's a ancestral monarchy uh, in Africa, a political system that look at it. Look at the hat he's wearing. Look at the. Um, does this remind you of the all of this accessories would wouldn't be out of place in the Vatican or Rome? You know, like this. What I'm saying is this system of um, hierarchy had a additional system of hierarchy above that, and it even says with one of these stories I read. Let's see if I can find it. It talks about how um, they're like the ruling class of the here's right here. Okay, rare photo of Izeniri Ifkunanen, the priest king of ancient Neri kingdom of Igboland. So this is, it. I know that doesn't really sound very African, but this is supposed to be an African uh, king, but they're calling it a priest king. What there's all you need to say is king, if that's what it was. But a priest king is putting like a limitation on its kingness, isn't it? A priest king. Um, but they're not like it's not like there was some other actual king that this guy uh, was answering to, or at least that's not the story we're being told. Um, um, but it kind of reminds me of the fact that America doesn't have a king. It's not even allowed to. Part of the agreements that were signed to end the Revolutionary War were agreements for how our government were to be run, and there were rules like that we agreed to end the war. Some of them being, or one of them being, that we're not allowed to have a king or a monarchy. We're only allowed to have a president, because a president, uh, that word, it is driven from the corporate landscape. You're president of a company, but but a president isn't actually a ruler of a nation, because America isn't a nation. That's how we actually lost the Revolutionary War, but but we're allowed to run our company, our corporation. The United States of America in capital letters is the corporation. It sounds kind of crazy, and I'm sure a whole bunch of you are having a hard time, uh, you know, a hard time coming to terms with that, or coming to terms, or how do I say that? Having a hard time not calling me crazy. But I feel you. It is crazy. Sounds crazy, and I would think and say the same if I was in your shoes. But anybody that's actually done the research uh, winds up arriving at that same conclusion. Okay, so here we go. The Gilbert Islands became a protectorate of the Great Britain, and were no unified or economic or political system or cultural identity. Or cultural identity. A single national identity emerged only after World War II as a result of colonial policies intended to move the area toward political independence. But yeah, they wanted them to be independent. They wanted them to put up a front of being this separate, unique culture and peoples and nation. So that um, there's this appearance uh, uh, of a multitude of variety in peoples and places and nations, with a much more complex history to explain them all, but but it was just all made up after World War One as a result of some policies. So people just made that up, but they really don't have any cultural identity, because they're just a leftover, just like every other area of the world is left over from this system of gods, quote unquote, and the god humans, half god, half human, hybrid species, where the gods were, uh, who knows how godly they were behaving, you know. I can't, I wasn't there, I can't call it. Doesn't sound like they were the nicest people on earth, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not trying to morally justify anything that happened in the past. I just want to know roughly what happened in the past more accurately than I was taught in school. Because, I knew all along that what we were taught in school was just bullshit. But if you have nothing to replace that bullshit with, then you're pretty much stuck with the bullshit, because that's the only way you're going to be able to communicate with people. You know, if you all agree that those stories you were told growing up were true, even though you know they're not. But, until we have something that we can all agree on that actually happened instead of that shit, we're kind of lost, and we're kind of got nothing but our bullshit to keep us comforted. So they have their own language. They have their own language, historical experience and language, distinguish themselves from neighboring islands. So neighboring islands, not that far away, and not that large of areas, have completely different languages than their neighbors on little islands right next to them. Like, that doesn't just doesn't seem like it would make sense given that, you know, whole evolutionary straight line story we were told. It makes way more sense if that was the case, that these people on small islands near each other were actually communicating and trading and having and speaking to each other in the same language, rather than just completely isolated, uh, you know, just people that happen to wind up there because, you know, a breeding population of folks decided to get on a boat someday and just say, fuck it, let's just, you know, close their eyes, spin until they're dizzy, and then just wherever they were pointing, okay, let's just keep going that way until we hit land. And at least we'll try to, and if, you know, wherever we end up, that's where we're going to live. And then if we can see an island way out there in the distance, you know, we're not going to bother trying to trade or communicate with them. They're going to be different. You know, it doesn't make sense for there to be different languages on in these islands. So, and you know, it's saying two different things basically. It's saying that they had no unified economic or political system or cultural identity. They had none of that, but they had their own they had their own language and historical experience and language. So no no political system or cultural identity. But their historical experience and language distinguish themselves from neighboring island groups. That's just, that presents a problem as far as I'm concerned. If you might look at it another way, and I respect that. Alright. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make all of the points that I wanted to basically like have you learn all these little facts in kind of the order I learned them, but it's not very possible. I'm doing my best. So, white Americans are an ethnic group of Americans who are descendants from any of the indigenous peoples of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa, or in census statistics, those who self-report as white based on having majority white ancestry. White Americans, including white Hispanics, constitute the historical and current majority of the people living in the United States, with 72% of the population In 2010 census, non-Hispanic whites totaled about 197 million, uh, and European Americans, the largest ethnic group of white Americans, and constitute the historical majority population of the United States since the nation's founding. I don't think so. I think the Native Americans were the largest ethnic group, but that's only if the story we were told was true. See, I think that there must have been whites here all along and indigenous people here all along. Um, um, uh, well, yeah, apparently there were, because people in Mexico consider themselves white. See, Hispanics or Latinos may not identify as or may not be perceived to be white, but they are. So are uh, Arabs, Jewish, uh, white Cuban Americans. There's white Cubans. There's white Mexicans. There's uh, uh, Jewish people might as well be white, right? Like white is a pretty broad thing, but type O blood is pretty broad too, and it seems to me that O type O blood means original, and if the Anunnaki created the other races, then white would have had to have been original. The largest ancestors of America whites are German, Irish, English, Italian, French, Polish, Scottish, Scotch-Irish, Dutch, Norwegian, Swedish. Um, However, the English and British Americans' demography is considered a serious undercount, as the stock tend to self-report and identify as simply Americans due to the length of time they have inhabited the United States, particularly if their family arrived prior to the American Revolution. The vast majority of white Americans also have ancestry from multiple countries. But, I mean, how many other races can you say that about? There's all of these countries that are all under the same thing. Well, you know, as far as most people are concerned, just white. But because there really are only three, you can say that about everybody. Um, there's no difference. It's not Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese. They're all, there's Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid. That's it. O, A, and B. Um, 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 I think that's simple. It makes sense. I think there's a lot of evidence for it. Um, it's different than um, it's a different idea, I'm sure, to a lot of people, a new idea, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's my best, I'm the one doing all this research. uh, if you aren't doing half as much research as I'm doing into it, then I don't think you have much of a leg to stand on to tell me I'm wrong. But if you can give me some links, and I'm all about learning. I'm not about being right so much as, well, I want to be right at the end of the day. So if you are if you have the evidence I need to be more correct, by all means, please correct me. I'm not, I'm not necessarily here to teach you something unless I have anything to teach. If you have something to teach me, I'm all ears. All right, let's. I'm just gonna hunt and peck here. See what I find. You know, look at this shit. Who built that? I mean, this right here pretty much, you know, that might as well prove the biblical Great Flood. And the whole story we were told about the agriculture as the water receded, the agriculture on these tariffs right here. Those tariffs are for agriculture, and it doesn't make any sense to be growing your food right here in this steep ass mountain if you could easily just walk down to the valley below and grow down there where normal people do it. It would only make sense for this to exist if the water level was this high and then slowly getting lower, and therefore people kept making more and more terraces as the water level receded. And so this, you know, if Noah, well, the whole Noah's Ark story is preceded by an account called the Epic of Gilgamesh. That's the exact same story. It's just, it was written before the Bible. So these stories, I'm convinced, though, are not necessarily describing an event in black and white terms. And the Great Flood wasn't necessarily a one-time thing. I believe the Great Flood, it happens at the end of every age. Here, this is something here to make the video more well-rounded. Let's go. Cycle of Yugas. This is something I urge you to get familiar with. Learn about these cycles, because believe it or not, everything that you would learn fits what we see in our in the artifacts all around us in the world. So what will happen in the Kali Yuga? When the evil and decadence of the Kali Yuga reaches its zenith, Vishnu will have an incarnation, Avatara, and Kalki, the horse rider, to kill all the evil people and restore Dharma on earth, commencing in New Satya Yuga, which means the Golden Age. But look at this, Kalki, the horse rider, to kill the evil people and restore balance. In the book of Revelation, there was the horse rider. It was described as Christ coming back with a sword on a dressed in red or something on a white horse. But the book of Revelation is also saying the same thing, that there's going to be a when this thing says Vishnu will have an incarnation and an avatar, so it's saying a ascended master, a godly Superman, will incarnate and be this, basically what we would call the second coming of Christ, and as Kalki, the horse rider, to kill all the evil people and restore Dharma on earth. That's exactly what Revelation is saying. It's just saying it in a different way. So when these vastly different, seemingly vastly different cultures and myths are saying the same thing, that's another thing that doesn't hurt my thesis any. When everybody around the world has the same religious ideas, but they're saying them in different ways, like, they would have to be said in slightly different ways, just because, I mean, we all know that telephone game, but also, if everybody's languages were deliberately, differentiated than just by translating the exact same story from two different languages. You're going to have differences, that would easily explain the differences that we see here, the differences between this and the Book of Revelation. Because really, what are the differences? The differences are just names, nouns. You know, you can't really translate a noun or a name because it's the same in every language. If my name's Bo, even if you speak German, my name's still Bo. So you don't translate the name. So, but you could read this as, you know, if you translate the names also, it would just say, Jesus will come back in the second coming, and you know, on a white horse and have a sword. You know, it'll say exactly what it says in Revelations. You understand? So I don't care how you look at this. This is significant and important. Either two completely different cultures they're both arrived at the same wacky you know, vision of end times, or these two different cultures weren't so different after all, and they both originate under the same umbrella as every other peoples all around the world. So, and it's not like, you know, my thesis isn't hurting for support in any way. You know, it fits everything, even the myths all around the world. The myths about like Atlantis, for example. Yeah, it fits. You know, I keep finding more and more evidence that's telling me my general outlook at things is you know, looking better and better, and everybody else's is really everybody's in for a big surprise. If people aren't coming along with me on this journey of discovery, then, you know, I feel sorry for the people that are getting left in the dust, because, you know, it's like, don't you want things to change? If you're, you know, most people would like things to improve. Well, if you're not even looking for your worldview, if you're not looking for the things that are wrong with your worldview, and nobody else around you is doing that, then it's not possible for the situation you and an extension the rest of society is in is ever going to change. If everybody keeps doing, acting, and believing and feeling the same things, then they're going to keep experiencing the same things. So, you know, I think I think what I'm doing here is important on many levels, and it's more important than people than you would think at first impression. But I think I'm gonna end the video here. It's gone way too long, but there's gonna be more. Trust me.